It's time for City Beat, your source for all the latest news on the city of Thompson, only on 610 CHTM.
Hello and welcome to City Beat. I'm your host, Jaret Schneider, and joining me today is City Manager Gary Ceppetelli. Good morning.
Good morning, Jared. Pleasure to be here.
And thanks for coming. So Tim is a little bit is out of town this week, but anyway, before we get into the questions first, I'll give you a minute to run things down from the past week, as well as anything that might be coming up in the city in the coming week.
Sure. I think a couple of things. I mean, obviously for the information of the public, and one is sort of the service lines that are freezing at this point. So I mean, I would sort of want to get the information out to the public that I mean, it's their responsibility for their own service lines, and really that some of the things that they can do is to ensure that they are ensuring that water is running if they are away from their home for extended periods of time. You know, have somebody come in and flush the toilet and whatnot, so that it really sort of keeps that water flowing. The city does also have sort of a bleeder program. I mean, there are certain areas in the city that are more susceptible to having the service lines freeze. So really, that if they're in that category, is to phone City Hall. And I mean, definitely we can consider setting them up for a bleeder program.
204-677-8181. We don't have the mayor, but we do have City Manager, and he will be taking your calls if you have any questions about anything. 204-677-8181. Mayor and Council had asked Stats Canada for a review of the 2011 census, and it came back that they added an extra 300 people to the population, making Thompson now just over 13,000. So what was the reasoning for asking Stats Canada to do this? And
I think is that part of the reason is that some of the lagging indicators that we've always been identifying with is sort of the vacancy rates and things of that sort really sort of didn't seem to jive as to what the numbers were coming back from when the census was done in May of 2011. And from that aspect, it was hard to determine as to what those numbers had actually dropped, because we likely felt that there should have been an increase in the population. So having contracted somebody to take a look at those aspects really sort of did the analysis from the dissemination areas of which Stats Canada operates under, and from those aspects put together a case and submitted a formal review to Stats Canada, of which they came back and recognized part of that and increased the city's population about 294 people effective immediately. So I think that it really is a good news story, because that amounts to approximately just over an additional $50,000 in revenue per year of the availability of the census.
204-677-8181. You mentioned the extra $50,000. Now, with the extra 297 people, how, in other ways, is it going to affect Thompson, and how maybe will the city benefit from this extra people in the census?
Well, I think is like a lot of the funding that goes to municipalities are per capita based that we get from the province, and in turn the province gets from the federal government. So I think it helps the city.
City Beat will be back next Thursday morning at 11:30 with more of the mayor's take on what's going on.
Base grant that we get from the province, but also from the VLT granting formula. But the province as well gets additional monies from the federal government based on the population of the province. So I think that will allow us to do, you know, obviously more things from an operating perspective is on a yearly basis.
204-677-8181. And also another thing that came up at council on Monday was the city of Thompson will now be hiring a downtown coordinator to work in accordance with the new downtown strategy and the bylaw enforcers and the RCMP to keep the downtown safer. So first off, can you tell us maybe a little bit of the background of this and how it kind of came about and moved up into council?
Sure. I think, Council's been having this discussion over the last number of years, and primarily or initially through the Public Safety Committee of Council, as sort of dealing with sort of the downtown issue. From that aspect is over the last number of years, the city had contracted with a private company, which was Prairie Bylaw, and for a couple of years really entered into a contract for a year-round basis from them. Last year, or the year before, sorry, is that Prairie Bylaw wasn't contracted, so we had nobody to undertake some of those, take a look at the downtown issue. Last year, contracted with Prairie Bylaw for a 6-month period. Discussions continued on at the Public Safety Committee is that there was likely sort of a need to take a look at it from a more local perspective and try to address the issue. It's still sort of seen as a short-term solution, and wanting to sort of get put together a long-term strategy as to how do we deal with the downtown issue, and how do we coordinate with a number of other stakeholders.
204-677-8181. So with this new person now, what are some of the things that they may be doing on a day-to-day basis to keep everything safer and work down in the downtown area?
Well, the person that we're looking at hiring to sort of coordinate the program really will, over the next 6 to 8 weeks or so, put together that program as to how it the operational component will operate on a day-to-day basis. So we're looking at really sort of similar to last year when Prairie Bylaw was in town, is to have sort of people on the street as of May long weekend, likely till the end of October. So that person will be responsible sort of for coordinating that component of it. Also coordinating sort of the ambassador program that that's been run in the city for the last number of years and co-funded through the Manitoba Liquor Control Commission, is coordinating those day-to-day events, but also sort of coordinating sort of the partners and stakeholders and ensuring that we are delivering a coordinated approach to the entire downtown, which will include the RCMP as well.
204-677-8181. Now, with the registration for Communities in Bloom, once again coming back this summer, the judges will be coming back up to Thompson, getting 4 to 5 blooms last year. What are some of the things that maybe we need to improve on for this summer to help the city and get a 5th bloom?
Well, I think a lot of it is, I mean, obviously that this is the initial part of the process where we actually register for the program. Then there's a committee that's established, and that committee will sort of evaluate as to sort of what some of the pros and cons were from last year, and some of the areas where we can improve. And I think one of the biggest things that the community can help out is just being aware of the program, that it exists, and really is to ensure that their properties that they're responsible for, that they are doing some of those upkeeping and aspects, planting of flowers and things of that sort. So it's really more of a general awareness from a public standpoint to sort of that we can hopefully improve to that 5th bloom.
204-677-8181. Now looking back on last year, obviously got 4 to 5 blooms. What things maybe did we do well last year that we will look to maybe duplicate this year to help obviously increase it?
I think with some of the things that we've done well, I mean, obviously that there's an annual sort of profile that's put together that deals with a number of different aspects of the Communities in Bloom program. I think that really is that education of the public, both from a business perspective, but also from an individual residential perspective, and just sort of taking that pride in the community and ensuring that we as a community are making those things that we do well now even better.
204-677-8181. So before we go, obviously Mayor Tim Johnson is out of town this week. He's down in Toronto. So maybe briefly, could you tell us what are some of the things that he's doing down there, and what are some of the things that he's down there for?
Sure. The mayor actually went down as part of contingent with Valley representatives and our consultant through the Thompson Economic Diversification Working Group. They went down to Toronto for the Prospectors and Development Conference of Canada. From that aspect, and one of the main goals of that was a presentation on the process that the city has gone through, sponsored by Valley through the Thompson Economic Diversification Working Group, and really to sort of get that message out to a number of the other communities and individuals, senior levels of government, of the process that the city has went through. So I think that when the mayor is back in town come Monday, that's something that he'll likely report on in more detail at the next council meeting.
So that'll pretty much do it for City Beat this week. But before we go, I'll give you the final word to wrap things up for the week ahead.
Sure, and just a couple of comments really that I'd like to sort of get there as well, is that as part of our capital program for the coming season, I mean, we're going to be doing some preliminary work on Thompson Drive South between Cree Road and Oak Street, which the road will be closed for the afternoon today and all day tomorrow, so that we do some prep work in advance of our capital construction project for the summer. And as well as that, council at the end of January amended their fees and fines schedule to basically double the fine for parking in a handicapped parking space from $136 to $272, and really that there's a grace period and more of an education period, which information is on our website and will be in the paper, that it will be effective as of May the 1st.
So that will do it for City Beat this week. I would just like to thank City Manager Gary Ceppetelli for coming in today. Make sure to tune in every Thursday at 11:30 for another edition of City Beat. And to everyone, have a great rest of your Thursday.
City Beat will be back next Thursday morning at 11.